Hello, everybody, and welcome to English Grammar with Amaya sir. Currently, we are dealing with the SSC textbook, and we've already covered the Unit 3.1. It is now for us to start with the Unit 3.2. So, we are going to do our first lesson. And let's dive straight into what the topic is. What we are going to study today is The Night I Met Einstein. So, this is 3.2, written by Jerome Weidman. Now, if you do not know a lot about, of course, the gentleman in the snaps is Albert Einstein, the great scientist. And if you do not know more about Jeremy Weidman, here it is. He was born in 1913 and he passed away in 1998. Now, important to note that he was the winner of the Pulitzer Prize for his work, a musical drama called Fury. He collaborated with George Abbott and other writers for its music and lyrics. So he was not the only one, but he collaborated, he worked with them. And his book, I Can Get It For You Wholesale, has also been used for a movie of the same name. So the name of the movie is the same. Now, those who are wondering what a Pulitzer Prize is like, well, this is what the Pulitzer Prize looks like. Now, if I am not wrong, the Pulitzer Prize is actually, it's a surname, just like Nobel Prize. So Pulitzer Prize, that's how it looks, of course, but it is a family name. And he was a proud recipient of that particular prize, the Pulitzer Prize. Now, about the lesson. The author has described the night when he accidentally met Albert Einstein. I'm going to ask you, how happy and how lucky would you consider yourself if you had such an opportunity to meet the great Albert Einstein himself? That's the luck that the author had. They were invited for dinner and the hostess had arranged for a concert. Now, hostess is feminine gender of host, someone who organizes an event. Einstein made the writer realize that he was not tone deaf. Now, we will deal with what this tone deaf is in the lesson. And Albert Einstein took a great effort to make the author realize that he was actually not tone deaf. Now, I'm really excited to bring this lesson to you because it shows another dimension to Einstein's personality. Yes, we all know that he gave the theory of relativity. Yes, we know he was a genius scientist, but then this will show you yet another facet of his personality. So let us dive into something else. These are musical instruments and, well, here it is. Their names and the one who plays it very well, an expert or an ustad, and of course, what is the player who plays it called? So the first one is tabla, and tabla player is what is the word colloquially known as tabalji. Ustad Zakir Hussain is the maestro. This is the shehnai, and the player is called the shehnai player. And Ustad Bismillah Khan is a great example of how beautifully it can be played. This is the piano. Now, why this is the most important here is because it is something that the lesson is about. Very important, guys. So, someone who plays the piano is known as a pianist. And if I have to quote an Indian example, Akash Gandhi is a very good piano player. Now, he is very famous indeed. You can actually go ahead and YouTube, you'll find a lot of videos of Akash Gandhi and Bollywood tracks that he will play. He is a very good teacher as well. So in case you want to learn how to play the piano, just as an example. Beautiful. The next is drums, and the one who plays it is known as a drummer. And Shivamani, he often performs with the legend A.R. Rahman himself. So he is a well-known personality. This one is violin, of course, easily recognizable, very popular musical instrument. And the pronunciation is violin, not violin. It's violin. Someone who plays it is a violinist, and L. Subramaniam is a great example. This is the sitar, and someone who plays the sitar is known as the sitarist. And Pandit Ravi Shankar is a great example. By the way, Pandit Ravi Shankar will also feature in one of the lessons that you have to study in this very year. So there will be a lesson, and in fact in this unit itself, so you will have a great lesson where you will have Pandit Ravi Shankar featuring, and that is actually a true account, something very interesting. I'll not give away much right now. What else? You have the trumpet, and someone who plays the trumpet is called a trumpeter, and Louis Armstrong is a fantastic example. They are all the maestros, the one to the far right. Now what else? Here is a question. We have seen a lot of musical instruments, but I want to ask you, do you know what is the word for a flute player? The great master is Sri Hariprasad Chaurasia. So you see his image. So what is the word for a flute player? Do you know what it is? Okay, I'm going to show that. The word is flautist. So you actually call such a person a flautist. Very important if you did not know this word. Okay, so Sri Hariprasad Chaurasia is a flautist, someone who plays the flute. It's not flutist, it's flautist. I bet if you did not know this, comes as an interesting FYI. Let's dive into the topic straight away. First I shall read, and by the way, before we go ahead, let me explain you how it all works. As usual, what will happen is I will read, then I shall provide all the necessary notes. We will study them, then I will give you 2 minutes of time to make all your notes. You can jot it down, write it properly, make your presentation. 2 minutes. But whilst I'm explaining, then don't get disturbed. Let's dive into the lesson straight away. Let me read it. Enjoy. When I was a very young man, I was invited to dine at the house of a philanthropist. After a wonderful dinner, our hostess took us to a large drawing room. Chairs were being arranged. I am arranging the chairs for a concert, my hostess said. We are going to listen to a very good pianist. Now we have already done what is pianist in the previous slides. Philanthropist is the word you should study. Philanthropist. A person who works for welfare of others, donates money for a good cause. A social worker, charity, something like that. Philanthropy and philanthropist. Concert is a performance by singers or musicians. You often must have heard of this, or maybe you must have attended a concert. Hostess is already discussed, a woman who invites guests for a social event, a party. Now this is a good grammar question. When I was a very young man, I was invited to dine. So here the part when I was a very young man will be subordinate adverb clause of time. Now before we go ahead and continue with the slide, I want to add, or rather not add, remind that we have started the system of color coding. So make sure whatever your colors are, you stick to them. So for vocabulary, you must have assigned a particular color. For grammar, you must have assigned a particular color, because now we're through with one poem and now we are doing a lesson. So make sure that you're particular. It will definitely help you going forward. Okay, so back to the lesson. This is another one. Chairs were being arranged. So we will probably be asked to change the voice here. Now chairs were being arranged. Here you do not have the subject. Here rather you do not have a doer. So who is doing this? Chairs were being arranged, but by whom? You don't know. So you are going to start with the doer. And you are going to supply a doer. They were arranging chairs. Now they were arranging chairs. Ing is important because in the line you have the word being. It's very important, guys. You notice such things. Being. That's why you have they were arranging chairs. Very important. Another one. I am arranging the chairs. This is a contradiction for I am, and they'll ask you to find identify the tense. And so the tense is the present continuous tense. I want you to make proper note about the spelling of continuous. It's Continuous. Often students make this mistake that they think that the spelling of continuous is C-O-N-T-I-N-O-U-S. No, C-O-N-T-I-N-U-O-U-S is the spelling of continuous. So I'm sure you want to make proper notes. I think that's about it. So I will start now your time. What we have agreed to do is to provide you 2 minutes today for each slide. So your time actually starts now. There you go. Please make accurate notes. I think the new word that we are studying here is philanthropist. That's a new word we are studying. Hostess, if you did not know that word, that was new. And very important was a discussion on change the voice. Chairs were being arranged because you don't have the doer. That's why, because you don't have the doer, you started with they. You gave a doer, some unknown person, so they. And because you have the word being with ing in the question, you use arranging. The verb also should have the ing then in that case. And the tense is present continuous for I am arranging the chairs. By the way, the spelling of continuous is C-O-N-T-I-N-U-O-U-S. Very important. I would like to ask you in the notes wherever you're writing to write down name of a few other philanthropists that you might know. Bill Gates would be one. Ratan Tata would be one. So anyone who does a lot of charity, welfare, something for the society. Half a minute more and then we shall continue. Make sure that the color coding is intact. Don't break that chain. Last 15 seconds, guys. So this is our first lesson. I'm very happy to bring it to you. We are done with the poem and now the lesson. The time is almost up and I hope that you are also done writing it. Okay, time for us now to move to the next slide. As usual, let me read it and then we shall get the explanation done and then we will again have the time to make notes. By the way, in the first paragraph, we saw that the writer was invited for the concert. They were arranging chairs and they were going to listen to a pianist. So what happens now? Though everyone else was very happy, I was not. I did not understand classical music. I thought I was tone deaf. We have discussed this word, but I did not reveal the meaning at that time. We are going to study that. I sat down so that I would not be impolite and waited for the concert to begin. I did not pay attention to the music after it began. So here you know that the writer is referred to as I. So he is writing it. So I is the writer and he is saying that everyone was enjoying but he was not enjoying it because he thought he had no understanding of music and he believed that he was tone deaf. So what is the important point here? Tone deaf, the vocabulary. It's a compound word. There's a hyphen here and it means unable to understand the high and the low musical pitch. Someone basically who doesn't understand the notes. Though everyone else was very happy, I was not. So the part I was not will act as the main clause, okay? And the part which is at the start will be subordinate adverb clause of concession / contrast. This is very important. You write concession / contrast because at some places it's known as concession, some places contrast is more popular. So better write down subordinate adverb clause of concession / contrast. In the earlier slide as well, we had an entry for clauses. That's why you got to be very careful. I'm sure you'll enjoy that. And yet another clause entry. I sat down. The first part will be the main clause here. And the part after that, which is so that I would not be impolite. That part will be the subordinate adverb clause of purpose because of this word so that. Now, a very important thing, but let me come on camera to share this. Then I will give you time to write, don't worry. The important thing here to note is that if so that is together, then it is adverb clause of purpose. But if it is so, something, that, then it conveys result, then it is adverb clause of result. Let me bring the notepad in front of you to just maybe perfect this point. What I am saying is that if you have something like this, she studied hard so that she could come first, something like that. Compare that now with something like they fought so hard that they won the battle, or something like that. Now here you would notice that here so that is together, and here you have so hard that. So it's very important you understand the difference between these two. So what I'm saying basically is that the A part is subordinate adverb clause of purpose and B is subordinate adverb clause of result. I hope that this point was very useful, because both the times you have so that, but there's a difference in the way so that is used, and therefore the clause will also change. Okay, so let's come to the slide now. Your time starts now. Please make a note of this. I would want rather you to start with that so that example if you want. Remember what I said, okay? So that and so that. Later you can of course write down what you see on your screens right now. There are two examples of clauses. In the same slide, we had a clause example in the previous slide as well. Tone deaf. If this word was new for you, I've learned something. Someone who is unable to understand the high and the low tones. Someone who doesn't understand music and therefore is not able to appreciate good music. By the way, remember what I said about concession / contrast. It's better to write both. And also you should remember that though, although, even though, all of them are show adverb clause of concession. Very important, guys. Got a minute more? What you should also write is, I have used the green color to show grammar, but I have not used the box for showing the main clause. I have written it with my pen. So you should also write it down that way. You should also write I was not as the main clause. I just wanted to highlight the subordinate clause. But obviously when you make notes, you can write the main clause as well. And now it is about half a minute more. So let me pull the notepad again. If you don't remember what the lines were, these were the lines. She studied hard so that she could come first, and they fought so hard that they won the battle. So in the first case, she studied hard will be the main clause. So that she could come first is the subordinate adverb clause of purpose. The second one, they fought so hard, is the main clause, and that they won the battle is the adverb clause of result. Okay, I'm sure that you are ready to move on, and therefore let us go to the next part of the lesson. As usual, let me read. After a while, I heard everyone clapping, so I realized that the piece was over. Just then I heard a gentle but firm voice saying, "You're fond of Bach?" I knew as much about Bach as I did about nuclear physics. I was going to say something ordinary so that I could get out of the situation. I turned in order to look at my neighbor and I saw a very famous face. It was someone with a shock of white hair and a pipe. Guys, it was someone with a shock of white hair and pipe. So that's the description of Albert Einstein himself. And so he was about to say something just in order to come out of the situation, but he realized that oops, he's sitting beside the great Albert Einstein himself. The piece was over, and that therefore when everybody started clapping, the writer thought maybe he should also applaud, because of course he didn't realize that it was the climax. Now the gentleman here is the great German music composer Bach. You can actually go ahead and Wikipedia him. And shock of white hair. So here shock means untidy, messed up. Untidy hair is the shock. Of course, you must have seen a lot of images of Albert Einstein. You can say that yes, untidy hair. And pipe is the smoking pipe we are referring to. Now let us look at a grammar entry. I turned in order to look at my neighbor and I saw a very famous face. So they will ask you probably to make a simple sentence out of it, and you will use the word having for it. Having is one of the ways of making a simple sentence. So having turned to look at my neighbor, comma, I saw a very famous face. So you have changed what is a compound sentence into a simple sentence because the question had and, which is a coordinator, makes it a compound sentence. Okay, so again your time starts. Let's do that immediately. 2 minutes. Of course, if you have already heard Bach, you know that his music was awesome. One more place where I would like to I would like to refer Bach is, if you have seen Jaden Smith's movie, Will Smith's son, the Karate Kid. You know, the scene where the dude is talking to the girl in the park where they played basketball. She was listening to Bach. So that's a very recent reference in movies for Bach. I'm sure you've seen the movie The Karate Kid. I'm talking about the scene where he's talking to the girl in a garden. They're playing basketball. That scene, very special, very good movie, and Bach is definitely very popular. Now here, pipe is not the your water pipe. Here, pipe refers to the smoking pipe. Sherlock Holmes used it, a fictional character, of course. Another 50 seconds and then we will move on. There's not much to make note of here, but the simple sentence entry was good. If you want to make a note of, you could also write down that being, then having, then ing, in spite of are some of the ways to make it simple. I will say it again: having, being, in spite of, and using ing. These are very popular ways of making a simple sentence. You can change the sentence to simple sentence. About 15 more seconds. In fact, talking of shock of hair, the image that I shared with you right at the start of this lecture, you would see that he had untidy hair. At least they looked untidy. And your time is up. I'm sure you're ready to dive into the next slide. Let me read it. I knew that I must tell this man the truth. He looked at me as if my answer was very important. I do not know anything about Bach, I said. I have never heard any of his music. He looked surprised. You have never heard of Bach? He asked. He made it sound as if I had said that I had never taken a bath. Now, Bach and bath do rhyme. That's why I think it's beautiful. Got to make note of such things. There's another thing I want to point out. Look at this word looked. Twice you have this in this part. Where's the other one? Here. So the point I want to make is that it makes the t sound for it to be right. So often I've heard students saying looked up, making the d sound. That's not what we want. You should make the t sound, like the tiger, t, looked. Now when you say looked, it is correct, no matter how much you stress on it. And the moment you make the d sound, looked up, then it is not right. So looked. The t sound is very important. So notice again, I will go back to the PPT. Notice how I'm saying it. He looked surprised and not he looked surprised. Very important difference. I'm sure you enjoyed it. Just replace your d with t. You'll get better. Let's see what we can study from this. A grammar entry. I knew. Here I knew will be the main clause. Okay. And the remainder part will be the subordinate noun clause because it answers the question what? I knew. I knew what? That I must tell this man the truth. Okay. What else? I do not know anything about Bach. Now, because you have this word not, it becomes negative. So you want to make it affirmative, meaning you want to make it positive. The answer will be I hardly know anything about Bach. So again, I do not know anything about Bach. Make it affirmative. I hardly know anything about Bach. You have never heard of Bach? Well, that's a rhetorical question. Now, rhetorical, look at the spelling. Rhetorical. That's how you spell it. So what is a rhetorical question? A rhetorical question is when you don't need an answer. For example, don't try this at home. So for example, if your parents are angry with you, if your mom is angry with you and she asks you a question, who do you think of yourself? Don't answer. She doesn't need your answer, guys. So it is a rhetorical question, meaning what's wrong with you. Get a hold on yourself. Okay, something terribly wrong with you. You need to change your behavior or something like that. So any question which doesn't require an answer is a rhetorical question. Remember that. Interrogative, of course, but it doesn't need an answer. Such an important concept. So here it's a rhetorical question. They want us to make it assertive. You have never heard of Bach is a surprise. Like Einstein could not believe it. So he asked his Einstein asked, right? So he's asking, you have never heard of Bach? So you should have heard of Bach. It's very obvious that you should have heard of him. So there's surprise. It's more like an expression than a question. You have never heard of Bach? You should have heard of Bach. Now here is something very interesting. This is the most interesting part of the slide coming up, guys. Verb forms are often obtained by adding E at the end. B-A-T-H is bath. And if you want the verb form, you get it by adding E at the end and it becomes bathe. Bathe. This one is bath and the verb form is bathe. Make the right sound, guys. Okay? But this is not the only example. I'm going to give you two more examples. The next one is breath. So B-R-E-A-T-H is breath. And adding E at the end will make it B-R-E-A-T-H-E, breathe. I'm sure you're getting this. I'm trying to show you a very nice dimension. Adding E at the end. Just adding E at the end will give you the verb form. They could ask you the verb forms and then this knowledge will come in handy. Again, bath, bathe. Okay? And the second one we saw was breathe and breath and breathe. I'm going to, as I promised, I'm going to show you the third example as well. Cloth, C-L-O-T-H is cloth and clothe. Okay, I repeat, cloth and clothe. You just add E at the end. You can look at the dictionary and you will find that all the three entries are just perfect. Well, there are more, but then these are very popular. Adding E will give you the verb forms. That's it. Now your time will start. Let me do that immediately. There you go. Your time has started. Make proper notes, guys. There are a lot of things here. We have consistently seen the clause entries. And in this part, what happened was Einstein was extremely surprised that his neighbor did not know who Bach was. He's never heard of Bach. He was very surprised. And the writer was surprised because he did not know how popular Bach is. So he said, what was so big deal? What was such a big deal about it? He is acting as though I've never taken a bath. So I'm sure that you understood what is a rhetorical question here. Rhetorical questions, the questions that don't need an answer. You have about 50 seconds more. Please make proper notes. Well, like a homework, as a homework, you can try to find more such words where adding only E to the end will give us the verb forms. Only E, adding just the letter E at the end should give us the verb forms. That is kind of a good homework for this lecture. Find out at least 3 more such words. You can Google, of course. 20 seconds more before we continue. Affirmative is making it positive. I don't want you to confuse it with assertive. Once the time is over, I will quickly tell you the difference before we proceed and go to the next slide. The time is up, and I want to share this because this is such an important thing. Students often get confused between what is affirmative and assertive. So let me clear the difference. Affirmative is making positive. From negative, you make it affirmative. That means you remove 3 words: no, not, never. That is affirmative. Making it assertive means making it a plain statement. A plain statement. Okay, very important. So maybe it's exclamatory. How cold it is. It is very cold. That is assertive. And affirmative is making positive. Removing the negative words is affirmative. Well, I'm hopeful that you are clear about it right now. Let us proceed. Let me read it. I would like to understand music so that I could understand Bach, I said, but I'm not able to. I'm tone deaf. Now here I'm sure that the words "so that" immediately captured your attention because we've discussed "so that" for clauses. So clearly that will be the first entry, but of course here the command is rewrite starting with "in order to." So before we do that, well, let me again say that "so that I could understand Bach" could very well be subordinate adverb clause of, remember, purpose. So that is together is purpose. Remember, we did the example. This is the example we saw, and therefore you should remember this "so that" being together is adverb clause of purpose, and that's why look at the one we have right now. So this is also "so that," which is together over here. So that. Okay. Now here the command is rewrite starting with "in order to." So I would like to understand music so that I could understand Bach. In order to understand Bach, I would like to understand music. This is a very important question. I feel it is very likely to be asked. There is another entry. I am tone deaf. Add a question tag. This contraction here shows am. Very important, guys, that you know that the auxiliary am changes to aren't. There is no such word as amn't. And yes, students do kind of sometimes go for the word ain't. The problem with ain't is okay if you're speaking casually. I repeat, ain't is in the language. It is in use, perfectly contemporary, but it is informal. So while you speak, it's okay. But when you're writing an answer formally, better not to use ain't, go for aren't. Okay, so am changes to aren't. Even are changes to aren't. Both change to aren't. So very important point I made. Ain't is allowed in English informally. In fact, if you look it up in the dictionary, I'm sure the dictionary will say the same, that it is informal, and aren't is much more formal, so that is allowed, and the board would probably not cut marks. All right, this is the most important part of this slide. So we are going to study the difference, the negative and affirmative. Do not start jotting down the points. I've told you many a times. Let me first explain. I will give you 2 minutes to jot down. Don't worry about it. But understanding what's going on is so much important. That's why don't make, don't be in a haste and don't rush into things. When you learn it, make sure that it stays for a long time. That will benefit you. So let us go back to the presentation. So what I'm talking about is the negative and affirmative. So when you have not able, you can make it unable. So this is all by using the prefixes. Something that is not possible is impossible. So if you have, let's make up lines. Okay, so I am not able to, which is the case in the part of the lesson here. I am not able to. You can say I'm unable to. That will make it affirmative. Not possible. This is not possible means this is impossible. Very important. If you say this is not correct, that means it is incorrect. So this is not the correct answer means it is incorrect answer. An incorrect answer. Something that is not respectful is disrespectful. So this is not a respectful behavior. This is a disrespectful attitude or behavior. Not responsible, irresponsible. So he is not a responsible officer. He is an irresponsible officer. Not logical is illogical. So this is not a logical thing. So this is an illogical thing. You must have noticed here that on purpose I tried to provide you different prefixes. So here you have on, here you have im, then you studied in, then des, then ir and ill. Talking of good homework, here is another good homework. You will have to find at least 3 more examples in each category. So 3 with des, 3 with ir, 3 with im, and so on. Find 3 more examples in all of these categories. It's very important that you do your homework, guys. So 3 of un, 3 of im, 3 of in. How many will you have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You should have 18 such good examples. This will teach you how to change from negative to affirmative. And now, as usual, let me start your timer. So you have now 2 minutes to jot down everything, and please don't forget to write something about am. So I told you that ain't is also what the students write sometimes, but the problem with ain't is that it is informal, so you should not go for that. I'm going to say that ain't is not right. You should go for aren't. Again, this will clarify the difference between assertive and affirmative. I'll be with you in a minute. Please jot down everything properly. By the time that you are jotting it down, well, listen to this. I have received emails about, sir, can we ask you the doubts? Well, of course you can ask the doubts. You can email me, or you can leave your question in the comments. You can very well do that. Since this is a recording and not a live session, of course, in case you have any doubt, you can leave a comment. That's also a very subtle difference, guys, is it not? Comment and comment. So you can comment and you can leave a comment. I'm sure you notice the difference. Comment is the verb form, comment is the noun form. Okay, the point was that you certainly can ask your doubts. Go ahead. If there is any doubt, anything that I can help you with, help you understand better, I will do that. The time is almost up, guys, and so let us move to the next one. Now I have decided that the next slide would probably let's see, let's take a call after we see. Now this is what I'm going to do. Okay, now here I have decided that this probably will be the second last slide that we shall study. So we will do this one and we will do one more after this. There's no way that we can just get the entire lesson done. We will stop after the next slide. We'll do this one and we will do the next one. But before that, let me come on cam again to clarify the point. You can ask me the doubts. Please go ahead and leave a comment, and I will definitely come back to it in case you have a doubt. It's not compulsory that you should have a doubt, in case you do. Okay, back to PPT. This is what we were studying. The old man got up. You will come up with me? He asked. I just remained seated. I'm requesting you to come with me, he said again. So I went up with him. He took me to a room which had a gramophone in it and asked, what kind of music do you like? Well, I answered, I like songs that have words and the kind of music where I can follow the tune. Let's get the explanation done. So far, what have we seen? We have seen that the writer was not enjoying the performance of the pianist that much. Why is that? Because he thought he was tone deaf and he could not quite relate to the music. He could not relate to the music. He could not appreciate the music. So he suddenly then noticed that the man seated beside him was no other than the great noted physicist. And then he Albert Einstein asked him, you don't know, surprise, he asked him, don't know about, you've never heard of Bach. And now what Einstein probably is going to do is take him upstairs, maybe make him listen to some piece of music, some audio clip, some album, and Einstein will take efforts to make the writer realize that he is in fact not tone deaf as he thinks he is. He thinks, but he is not. So I think that's what Einstein is trying to get him to do, to appreciate and understand music, and to clarify his own misconception that he is tone deaf. I'm surprised that he referred to Einstein as the old man, but it's quite common culture in the Western countries. The old man. Believe me, if I were there and Einstein was the man next to me, I wouldn't call him the old man. Anyway, here is the thing to study from the slide. The first thing is gramophone. So this is also known as a phonograph, by the way, a machine for playing recorded music. And trust me, the first example that comes to your mind, I'm sure, is the cartoon Tom and Jerry, where there are a lot of scenes where there's a gramophone. Either Tom is enjoying it, or Jerry is playing or running on the gramophone disc, something like that. What else? Now this is an interesting thing. You will come up with me, he asked. Now here, you will come up with me is not exactly the right order, guys. Here he wants to make up a question, doesn't he? You will come up with me. Well, that's not the perfect order. Will should be first and you should follow it. So actual order should be, will you come up with me? And that is precise. But of course, here there is no English lecture in progress. I'm talking about the hostess's place. So here it is okay. Informal language, you will come up with me. But actually it should be, will you come up with me? And well, the writer remained seated. He didn't get up instantly, showing his efficiency. So Einstein again requested. Remember, it's important that the great scientist is requesting. So he said, I'm requesting you to come with me. And then finally the writer obliged and he went up with him. Now what happened after that? Albert Einstein asked the writer the question like, what kind of songs do you like? So he said, I like songs where I can follow the tune. But this is incredibly hilarious. He doesn't have a genre. He doesn't have a typical type or kind of music. He just says any kind of music where I can follow the tune is what I like. Now this shows that he is probably not tone deaf, because otherwise he cannot follow the tune. So Albert Einstein now is very sure that he can help the man out here. Okay, so I will again start your timer. 2 minutes for you to quickly jot down the points you see. Gramophone, remember it's also known as phonograph. And the mixed order here, you will come up with me. Now, will you come up with me should be the right order. Please make proper notes. Guys, after you're done making notes, I'm going to deal with this wrong order of using will first, or rather using will second. We will see good examples. First, utilize your time at hand. You have under a minute now, about 50 seconds. Also, you can make a note of the fact that how the culture is. Okay, so the old man is not so much Indian culture. In fact, we here would always respect the elders. It's very common in America and the Western countries to refer to someone like the old man. In fact, their dad is also called the old man. Here in India, very respectful, we won't ever say such a thing. It's not that we are scared, but it is just out of sheer manners and etiquettes that we wouldn't call our dad the old man or an old man. We won't do that. 10 seconds more. Of course, in the Western countries as well, I'm not saying that it is a token of disrespect. All I'm saying is that it's their culture. The time is up, and here is now what I wanted to share with you. Look at this. If you use the word will incorrectly while framing the question, it's a very common blunder in India. I'm sure when you read the line, you will understand. So people say, you will help me na. I'm sure you've heard of that. Okay, you will help me na. You can speak English na. But you need that na. That na is not English. You need that na. It's a very nice discussion that we are having. I hope you realize why this is important. I hope you realize this, that it's because of the ill placement of will or maybe can in the second example that you need to say na. Now what we will do is we will arrange it. And then you will find that you don't need the na if you have said it properly. So let's get back and do this. I'm sure you will enjoy this, guys. So the first one, the better thing is you ask the question, will you help me? And see, now you don't need na. Just compare it with this one. You will help me na? Will you help me? And then you don't need na. I am sure you're understanding the beauty of the examples you say. Now you don't need na. Will you help me? That's enough. You don't need na. So how to correct the second one? Of course, you're going to interchange the order again. So for the second one, you're going to write it as, can you speak English? Can you speak English? And then you don't need na. You can speak English now. Can you speak English? Very nice. Now we will probably write this down. So I'm going to give you not more than 1 minute. Let's say in fact I'm not even going to use the timer. I'm just going to ask you to write it down fast. Just general, under a minute to write this down. Please write down these examples. How to avoid this na blunder. And it was in context with what we saw in the textbook. Such a nice example. In fact, such good examples. This can happen to all auxiliaries. That's why we saw one example with will and one example with can. After this, we are going to proceed to our last slide for this lecture. Yet again, I enjoyed presenting this to you. I'm sure you are also now ready and always look forward to such lectures, because the situations are such that everybody is forced to stay home. You can make the most of technology this way. I hope you are happy. Okay, I think I've given you enough time. So let us quickly go back to the presentation, and we will now proceed to the last slide for this lecture. Let me read as usual, and then we'll see the explanation and study grammar and important aspects. He smiled and nodded. He smiled and nodded. Obviously pleased. You can give me an example perhaps? I told him I like anything by Bing Crosby. At once I could hear Bing Crosby's voice filling the room. Now can you please tell me what you just heard? He said. The simplest answer seemed to be to sing the lines. So I sang it back to him. Let us understand this. What happened here? Albert Einstein took him up in the room, and where there was a gramophone, and then he said, what kind of music? So then the writer said, okay, Bing Crosby, maybe you can play something by him. So immediately there was a melody by Bing Crosby, and immediately then he said after some time that, is it okay if you just kind of tell me what you heard? What did you just hear? The simplest way to tell Albert Einstein was to sing it back. And so the writer started to sing back the lines that he had, or the piece of music that he had just heard. Now there are many important things to study here. Let us study them one by one. First of all, nodded means to say yes. Move the head up and down in agreement to say yes. It is very important, guys. It's the up and down movement of the head to say yes. Okay. So if you ask your mama, can I go for the picnic? And she nods her head, well, you are happy. Okay. But if you ask mama, can I go for the picnic? And if you say that she shook her head, that means she said no. So this is, she shook the head, shaking of the head. And this is called nodding of the head. So a nod is a yes, and shaking of head is a no. Okay. So if you say that I asked her, she shook her head, so she said no. Nodded is to say yes. Very important, guys. I'm sure you're enjoying such minute observations. This is Bing Crosby, the famous American singer and actor. He acted as well. You can find more about him. This is the image I got from Wikipedia, of course. The grammar entry. Look at that. Inverted commas have already begun. Now, can you please tell me what you just heard? He said. So we will have to change it to the indirect speech. Okay. And so when we do that, what will be the answer? He asked me. Remember, it's a question, so not said. It will change to asked. He asked me if. Now, why do you use if? I will come on cam to explain you that. Why do we use if? Anytime you have a question that can be answered in yes or no, in a nod or in a shake of head, you have to use if. Or you can also use whether, W-H-E-T-H-E-R, whether. So here, look at the question. What is the question here? The question is, can you please tell me what you just heard? So it can be answered in yes or no. So obviously, you have if. If I can will change to could. If I could tell him, me is the writer. What I just heard. So very important that it is writer to the great scientist. So that's how you need to change the speech. There is this nice entry about the degree. I think the first for this year that we are seeing. The simplest answer seemed to be to sing the lines back. So no other answer seemed to be as simple as singing the lines back. If the word back is in the question, then you write it. Because it's in the next line, I have inserted the word back. But since it's not in the question given to us, I have not used it here. Let us do it again. The simplest answer seemed to be to sing the lines back. No other answer seemed to be as simple as singing the lines. Guys, it's a very, very nice, cool entry, and I'm sure that you found it interesting as well. Your time starts now. Just make your entries, and then we will bring this lecture to a conclusion. So Bing Crosby's image, nod is to say yes, shaking of head is to say no. It was his first entry for degrees, the comparison of adjectives, and direct to indirect speech. Notice how can changed to could, the pronoun changed to him, said changed to asked because it was a question. And because it was a question that could be answered in yes or no, we used if. This particular word actually, filling, such an important discussion I remember we did when we were doing that poem 3.1. I will comment on it as we conclude the lecture. Please jot this down. You have a minute more, and then I'll talk about this word filling, about the pronunciation part, and bring this lecture to an end. Fantastic. It's the first part. In the second part, we will end the chapter. I think this is what we did for the poem as well. Let me also know if those who have seen that particular lecture on 3.1, if you have attempted critical appreciation on your own. Let me know. About half a minute more. And after this, I will first talk about this word filling, something interesting, and we will bring the lecture to a conclusion. Okay, about 5 seconds remaining. And your time is up. So what it is that I'm talking about, this word filling? Let me bring the notepad again in front of you. Well, we did talk when I reminded you about this when we were studying 3.1 about the short vowel and the long vowel. Okay, so the short vowel and the long vowel, there's a difference. Look at this. The difference is slip, and then you have sleep. Similarly, you have fill and you have feel. Guys, I want you to clearly understand the difference. So, slip, sleep, fill, feel. So what am I getting at? I'm saying that if you make the wrong sound, it does make a horrible meaning. So when you want to say, ask somebody to fill the water bottle, okay, replenish, to fill, you don't want the person to feel the water bottle, you want the person to fill the water bottle. Do you get that? In the last lecture, when it was the poem, we saw the difference between pen and pain. Similarly, test and taste is different. Never ask the doctor, did you taste my urine? You meant test. Very clear. See, you think it doesn't make a difference, but it does. Okay, tell me, is there a difference if I say each and itch? There's a difference. Okay, itch, ITCH, each one of you, EACH, there is a difference. Okay, so I wanted to make that point. And now let us bring the lecture to a conclusion. I want to say a few things before we say goodbye. One, if you have any doubt, you can always go ahead and leave a comment, or you can comment. I will answer. The second thing is that the homework assigned to you, 3 more words with adding e at the end that give you verb forms, and also this prefixes. You need to give me 3 more words each, and let me know if you have attempted the critical appreciation for the previous point. This was the first part. I will definitely be back with the second part of this lesson. Until that time, take care, stay fit, stay safe, and I will meet you soon.